So, tomorrow, the day after this video is going live, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition will be launching on the Nintendo Switch. And it's a pretty big deal, because it's only the second first-party, high-profile Nintendo game to release during the year, which of course we know, and if you've been watching my videos, you've heard me bring up numerous times over the course of the past couple of months. And for myself, I am extremely excited for this. I actually, even as a non-JRPG fan, I actually love the three Xenoblade games, and in fact, the first one on the Nintendo Wii is my favorite of the three, which I know is a little bit controversial. A lot of people love Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I do as well. A lot of people think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the best of the three. I enjoyed it, but it's my least favorite of the three. And so seeing this kind of remake, remaster, whatever we want to call it, definitive edition of the original game coming to the Switch 8 years after the original Wii launch, it's really exciting, and I think this game is going to be a big hit. However, through all of the hype and the excitement for Xenoblade Chronicles has been quite a bit of weird controversy. I find this whole thing really strange, and in fact, there was an initial bigger controversial story going around this past week, but even just today, the day that I'm recording this, a whole new kind of controversy got out there, and everyone's losing their mind, and hard opinions on the left, hard opinions on the right. It's just crazy. So the bigger quote-unquote scandal, if we want to call this a scandal, was earlier this past week when news started to get out there that Xenoblade Chronicles might not be running in the most impressive resolution. We saw stories of it going only as high as 720p when docked on the Switch dock, and as low as 378p in handheld. And I'm going to tell you guys, 378 is obscenely, obnoxiously low. In fact, it's so low, I didn't even really realize that that was a resolution that you could hit. I know that there's like 140 and 280 or whatever those kind of crazy low resolutions are, but 378, I didn't even think that that was like a possible option as far as your resolution. It's just that crazy, you know, obviously well below 480. And this has been a huge deal for a lot of people, and honestly, I understand why. Like I was just saying, if it's really that low, I do think that, yeah, it's probably too low. It doesn't really make sense for a game like Xenoblade, coming from Monolith Studios and from Nintendo themselves, on the Nintendo Switch, which is hardware that they know so well, to be running at such a poor resolution. It really does not make sense. So at the end of the day, it seems like the overall performance and some aspects of the visuals in certain circumstances might not be the best and might not be the most impressive, which, like I said, is definitely unfortunate. But for myself, you know, I just can't lie to you guys. I kind of don't really care. I'm not, like, thrilled about it, and I definitely think that it should be running at a better overall performance. I don't think it's really great that Monolith and Nintendo couldn't, for some reason, get this 8-year-old game, even in a remade or remastered state, to be running at something a little bit more modern and up to par with the rest of the games, even on the Nintendo Switch. It doesn't make sense. But do I think we need to call for lynchings and firings and just, oh my god, this is just unacceptable, this is unforgivable, you should do something different about it? No, you guys know me, man. That's not really my perspective with this kind of thing. I'm absolutely more concerned about just the game, the gameplay, and the overall content. I already know this game extremely well anyway, so I know it's going to be a great fun game to play. Not to mention the updated visuals are still going to be there and are still impressive, even if the resolution dips, especially in handheld. And then, of course, most notably, is the fact that there's this future connected extra content thrown into this game, which, from recent things that I've been seeing online, I think that we've learned that it's actually a pretty sizable experience. What maybe we initially thought was going to be like 3, 4, or 5 hours of content might be as much as 10 to even maybe 20 hours of extra story stuff. And I mean, come on, how can you not be excited about that? If you're either an RPG fan or a Xenoblade fan, I don't understand how you can't be excited about that. And that goes a long way, for me personally, to kind of softening the blow of the really crappy resolution in handheld, which, by the way, I'm not going to play this game in handheld too often. I probably play handheld Switch maybe 10% of the time. Most of the time I'm playing on my TV nowadays. I used to play in handheld more often when the Switch was newer, but now it's been a couple of years and I'm pretty comfortable just playing on my TV. Of course, lest we forget the other big important factor here, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 basically did the same thing, and honestly, it even still kind of does the same thing. I do think the game looks pretty good. I like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like I said. I don't love it, and it's my least favorite of the three, But it's a very good game, and the size of the game to me is still kind of justified. And so, you know, the resolution dipping here and there, whatever, it's like, okay, it sucks, but I don't really super care. And that's a game that, man, if you play that game in handheld even today, I actually did probably a week or two ago, I did try it in handheld for a couple of hours. It still is like 480p or lower. I don't actually know what the resolution is, but man, it's definitely pretty rough. You can noticeably see, it looks like you're looking at like a 1990s CRTV when you play it in handheld. You know, it's like the graphics themselves are good and the world is huge and the art direction is great, but yeah, the resolution is super low. But that was coming up, you know, 2.5, 3 years ago. We should all be used to this. Like, if it was okay for Xenoblade at that time, why is it not okay anymore? And I know that a lot of people might jump up and say, oh, hey, I was mad about it when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out. And that's fine, maybe you were. I do remember that there was a conversation about it when Digital Foundry reviewed the game, but for the most part, people were pretty fine with it. It didn't create this huge uproar and this major internet kerfuffle like Definitive Edition is doing right now, where people were losing their mind and calling for things to be redone and saying how, quote, unacceptable it is. It's like people were much calmer about the fact that it was kind of lame that the resolution was so low for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Here for Definitive Edition, it's like this thing that people just can't get their minds over, and I'll just say what I've already said several times. For me, I don't care because I think the game itself is going to be amazing. And so that in and of itself was a pretty big story and something that people are definitely unhappy about when it comes to this game. And now we come to today, the day that I'm recording this, which will actually be yesterday by the time you guys actually watch this video. The reviews started to go up for this game. And in the reviews, some people are really struggling with how low they think some of these scores are. Most notably IGN's is the one that made the rounds, because IGN gave Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10, which is a, quote, great score according to them, and even as far as I think anyone objectively goes, 8 is a good score, meaning that the game is quality, and more often than not will be worth your full price purchase. I mean, heck, the game itself right now is at an 89 on Metacritic at the time that I'm recording this video, and that's with 54 reviews. I can't imagine too many more reviews will come in. Maybe we'll get up to 60, 65 or so. I don't think anything is going to drastically destroy this review score. So I think between a mid-80s, maybe even it gets as high as 9 or 991, potentially, I think that that's what the score is going to ultimately be on Metacritic. And I think that's a really good score, you guys. We cannot play this game where because something doesn't match our exact perfect scenario and wishes for a game in our heads, that means that suddenly high scores are bad scores. We can't start calling an 8 out of 10 a bad score. That is crazy. It's a really good score. And again, this game is also very old. This is an 8-year-old game. Even though it's being modernized and updated, it's still an old game. And in my tweet about this, actually, Nate from Direct Feed Games, who you guys probably know from the Spawncast, I've been on quite a few podcasts with him in the past, he even echoed that same thing in his response to my tweet, that a game that might have been a 9.0 masterpiece 8 years ago is not going to have the same revolutionary feel today, even if it looks better because they updated the graphics, or even with some of this extra side content that they added. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if it still came in at a 9 or a 9.5, but coming in at an 8 or even an 89 on Metacritic for an 8-year-old game, even with modern graphics, to me, is totally legitimate. I mean, and an 8, how many times can I say this? I need to not beat this dead horse. An 8 is a good score. It means the game is good, you guys. So if you're a Xenoblade fan, and if you're somebody excited for this game today, I don't think you need to see an 8.0 from IGN as this huge affront against your gaming opinions and like a dagger through your heart. I think that that's just crazy. And people are having a very heated discussion online about the reviews for this game. I can't believe IGN gave it a 9 8 years ago and are giving it an 8 today. I can't believe it's less than a 90 or a 91 on Metacritic. How dare they? Some people thinking it was only going to barely even scratch the surface of an 80 score on Metacritic, but here we are seeing it in the high 80s. I mean, isn't this all good news? And I don't know why people have to get so upset about it and so personally offended and have to just start fighting about it. And also start retroactively redefining what video game scores mean. I don't understand the nature of this. This happened with Death Stranding when it came out at like an 88 or whatever the reviews were, and people just couldn't even believe that. So at the end of the day, why is this game so controversial? And not even is this game controversial, let me rephrase that. Why is this game having or creating some of these controversies around it? And I think it's just a combination of a couple of things. I think it's because the Nintendo release period has been very slow in 2020. We've been starved for new Nintendo content on the Switch. Yes, other stuff has come on the Switch. Yes, they gave us one huge game, Animal Crossing. But outside of that, Nintendo-specific content, almost nothing this year. So here comes the first game. It's also a game in a very loved and popular series. It's a remaster of a classic game that people are a big fan of. And also, because of the genre it's in, I think that, fans of RPGs and JRPGs can be very particular with what they want and what they expect. That's what I've seen as a non-JRPG superfan, kind of from the outside looking in. That's the way I've seen it. I think that they're so particular and have such specific demands and wants for things that when they see stuff start to happen in not the perfect way, maybe some people just get upset about it and voice their opinions, sometimes in a reasonable way and sometimes in a not so reasonable way. And ironically enough, the resolution debate is the one that I understand even more. Even though I'll remind you guys, I'm not even personally super bothered by it, I understand a little bit more where people are coming from who are upset about it, because I think when you objectively look at what maybe a game like that should look like or run like on the Switch, it seems silly that they couldn't get it to run as well as they can. I mean, all you need to do is look at Breath of the Wild. That's a Nintendo game, a Nintendo franchise developed and published by Nintendo. That is a massive, massive, massive world with incredible graphics and art direction, and it runs beautifully handheld or docked. It looks great. The resolution, to my knowledge, doesn't dip significantly in any way, and there's only one area of the game we all know where the frame rate dips, in the Lost Woods. The rest of the game is perfect when it comes to the frame rate. 30 frames per second, sure, but it's consistent throughout. And so how can a game like Xenoblade Chronicles, which is only a remake of an already 8-year-old game, come out and perform so much worse, technically, like from a technical perspective? It's frustrating and it's kind of dumb. So I get the complaints and the frustration. But that doesn't really, for me, mean that it's still a problem. Like I said, if the game is fun, the game is fun. I'm going to play it. I'm going to love it. It's going to look beautiful. I just love what they've done to update the art style and remake the visuals and the character models and the environments. It looks beautiful, even if it's going to have lower resolution and handheld. It still looks gorgeous to me. I don't really know why they struggled to get this game to look or run as well as Breath of the Wild, but it is what it is. And so, I don't know, this game has created some controversies. I think it's a shame, but it's coming out tomorrow, and I cannot wait to pick it up and play it right away. So that's what's going on with Xenoblade and these weird stories and people's anger about it. And you know how I feel? How do you guys feel? What do you think about my thoughts and opinions on this, and what are your own thoughts and opinions? Are you upset by the resolution? Are you upset by the review scores? Do you maybe understand why the resolution is the way it is, or understand the review scores, or are you flip-flopped on those? Whatever you think, talk about it below, and hopefully we're all just excited to pick up and finally play this game. It's going to be great, so we should all just kind of be excited for what seems to be a really quality game with an 89 Metacritic score. That's a good game that's worth $60 to me. So let's just all be excited for it, okay? And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Overlift to Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.